Ninth Sunday in Ordinary Time lends itself to this beautiful, disgustingly beautiful image that helps us get to the heart of our need for God. Leprosy, beautiful. Gosh. Anyway, we have that story from the first reading of Naaman the Syrian who, is cleansed by the power of God through the prophet and by the prompting of his Jewish servant who sends him to Israel and follows the prescriptions. He goes into the water and is washed and cleansed, from this ailment. In the gospel reading, we hear of the cleansing of the 10 lepers, and in the cry of their heart, we come to understand the ailment that this really is, that leprosy is. So, in ancient times, they realized that leprosy spread very quickly from person to person through contact, and they ended up setting these people apart. So they ended up having to live apart from the community. They were also not able to go to worship, particularly in the temple. And so it's a profound sense of isolation that comes from this illness. And the reality is God uses that image to communicate what our problem is. We're born into this condition of spiritual leprosy. Original sin is really that. We're cut off from one another through an inability to love as we should, an incapacity to give ourselves away in love. Same thing with God. We're cut off. We don't have, union with Him, relationship with Him as we're born into this, quote unquote, God-forsaken world. But, it's this spiritual leprosy. Leprosy is an image of what our experience is. And so through the cry of our own heart for God to heal us, to restore us, to give us this capacity to love again, to be in relationship with one another in a healthy way, to be restored to worship and union with God, it's the isolation that drives us from ourselves. It's the isolation that screams and calls out, Lord, heal me. Fascinating, the response of the lepers, who 9 of them just go on their way. How could from such a cry of desperation and desolation, how could such, disposition of just taking for granted what God has done, how does that happen? Only one returns to worship the Lord, and that's the example set out for us today. We call out for so many blessings, so many graces, so many consolations in our life, and the reality is that God has given us restoration, from our isolation. He's brought us into relationship with Him and with others. He's given us a capacity to love. He's given us, all of the opportunity to fulfill the self-gift that He's made us to be, and we often just go on our lives like the 10 lepers and don't live them as He's called us to, in gratitude for being restored, for being cleansed, for being healed. Let's enter deeply into the call of Jesus on our own lives to examine how we've been restored. To see what He's given back to us in relationship with others and in worship to God, and live our lives from that place of gratitude for the restoration and healing that He's given us.